How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. I am finally at the end of Dying Light the Following. I was going around the entire map trying to find the experimental military tech for the Doom Buggy, but then I realized once I finish the game, I don't really need the Doom Buggy anymore, so I just started beelining the story. I'm at like 65 hours of the first Dying Light, and I really want to get back to Dying Light the Beast, so I'm just finishing out the game, but overall, masterful experience. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. In today's video, we have 3 topics to cover, starting out with a brand new DualSense that I've seen a lot of people asking how they can get. This one's exclusive to Walmart, so you're gonna have to be quick about it. After that, the PS5 lawsuit between Sony and Tencent is heating up, and Sony was not playing around with their responses to Tencent trying to get this dismissed. And finally, we have a Resident Evil leak that's not from Dust Golem, so I actually believe it, and it's pretty exciting. Real quick, it would really help me out if you subscribed and set your notifications to all, and of course, hype the video. It's the new dreaded YouTube feature that actually helps, so if you can do it, I appreciate it. But let's get into the first news story here, because Sony is releasing one of the coolest DualSenses yet, and I feel like I say that every time, but like, it's not my fault. Sony just keeps reiterating on special edition DualSenses and making them cooler and cooler. I like the God of War 20th anniversary one. I really like the Astrobot one. The Spider-Man 2 one I bought is excellent. And now we have the Icon Blue controller, which is like the bluest controller I've ever seen. I don't know what the advancements were in like pigment tech for plastic, but this is like a very deep, full, colorful blue controller. It reminds me of my green wall. We went with this deep green for the wall because it's nice and you look at it and you feel calm. That's how I feel when I look at this super blue DualSense controller. And because, you know, PlayStation is blue themed and Walmart is blue themed, Sony said, hey, what if we made this exclusive to Walmart? Thankfully, it looks like this isn't a super limited controller like the Astrobot one or some of the other special edition ones. I checked before this video and it's still in stock. The pricing on these is $85, and that is crazy. Like, we started at $70, I'm pretty sure, this generation, and I get it. They increased the cost of the controller $10 every gen. Like, the DualShock 3 was $50, DualShock 4 was $60, then DualSense was $70, and now they're $85. But like, man, I don't need another DualSense, but this one looks really cool. I kind of want to just pick it up, but I know I have the DualSense Edges already, so I'm gonna hold out and not buy this thing. And we're in that weird little phase where like, I'm being extra careful about buying accessories for the PlayStation 5 because in my head, I know that the PS6 is coming in 2027. Stuff like the Pulse Elevate speakers, I have no issue buying because those are made to be like things that last, you know, like you could carry them forward to the PlayStation 6 and be just fine. But like, I need to know if they're switching up the DualSense controller to a new version or completely revamping it like they did from the DualShock 4 to the DualSense before I feel okay investing in stuff like this. This really reminds me of the 500 million controller. If you don't remember this, back when they hit a big sales milestone for the PlayStation brand as a whole, they released these clear blue plastic versions of the PS4, PS4 Pro, and DualShock. I went out and bought the DualShock, and it was my main controller for so long that it's one of the only controllers I had where I rubbed off the stick rubber membrane and I got down to the like little plastic. I still have it, and it's like one of my all-time faves. I like that it was clear and see-through, but I don't know, something about this like deep blue coloring on this new controller is really speaking to me. It like puts me in a trance when I look at it. Like I mentioned, it's available now in the United States, Chile, and Mexico, I want to say. Like, it's a very exclusive controller. So like, if you want to get a controller to put in the stock room and then sell on eBay later, this could be a good candidate, but I don't know how that ever shakes out. I never sell anything, so I'm the bad person to ask for that. So yeah, if you want to grab one of these, you can pick it up right now. That brings us to the second news story though, which is an update on the Tencent and Sony lawsuit. So if you haven't kept up with this, I'll give you a quick refresher. Tencent made a game called Light of Motrium, and it's like on PlayStation 5. It's going to be on Steam, and it's just a blatant ripoff of Horizon Zero Dawn. And the gameplay is like Souls-like combat, but the overall world, the dinosaurs they're using, they're robotic and everything, the color palette, the main character, everything was like almost one-to-one ripped off from Horizon Zero Dawn. And they didn't even go through the effort to change it by 20%, which is the law for copyright, I guess. So like, it's super annoying to see them continue to do this because there's games like Arena Breakout that are just blatant ripoffs of Tarkov. Delta Force is a blatant ripoff of Tarkov and Battlefield. I mean, I could go on all day about ripoffs of American American or westernized games that are coming directly from Tencent and other Chinese mega corporations. And until now, no one's really gone ahead and done anything about it, but they just pushed over the line a little too far with Sony, and they are going totally nuclear against them in court right now. So Tencent tried to get the case dismissed by saying that Sony is trying to have a monopoly on open world third-person action games, which is ridiculous because the whole reason Sony's going after them is not for the gameplay or the fact that it's open world, but because the art style and overall look and feel of the game were completely ripped off one-to-one, so it has nothing to do with the gameplay. Then their second tactic was to come at Sony and say, oh, you guys are suing the wrong company. And this is where the lawsuit's at currently now, because Sony's hitting them back saying, you guys can play corporate hide and seek all you want, but like if you go to any Steam page, any PlayStation Store page, any trailer for the game, it clearly says that this game is from Tencent and a developer. So like, who cares if they're underneath the Tencent gaming umbrella? The fact of the matter is Tencent owns the studio. They are the parent company, and Tencent is the company we're going to go after because you own the developer, you own the IP, and at the end of the day, you're the one making the approvals on this stuff. And we would guess that you went out of your way to do this because clearly Horizon is a huge brand that people, not in the PlayStation hardcore ecosystem really like because it sells really well, even though no one talks about it. So yeah, don't do this. And the crazy thing is they took it one step further by saying, yeah, they went back and changed the art style and the trailers and the overall banners and everything, but the damage is already done. People were talking about this game being a ripoff of Horizon and it cheapened our brand overall. So no, do not dismiss this lawsuit. And now we're kind of waiting to see if that rebuttal from Sony is going to hold water. And if it doesn't, that's a huge failure of the courts. Like, honestly, I don't care all that much about Horizon. I don't love the Horizon games. I know it has its diehard defenders. I like Sony's games and, actually making stuff that's new instead of stealing from other developers to make your own stuff. So like, I want Tencent to kind of feel some punishment for this stuff because really the only fallout that could come from it is Tencent can't clone Western developers' games and collect a bunch of data and make money off of just directly stealing from Western developers. Like, I get it. They make some decent games that people like playing, like Arena Breakout on PC, but like, it's just stupid to just let them continue getting away with stealing because it just cheapens the overall look of gaming at the end of the day. Like, we've seen so many lawsuits on the movie side where, people copy movies wholesale and then release them and then act like they didn't know any better, and they've been punished whether they did it on purpose or not. So to know that it happens in every other entertainment field than gaming, I don't want gaming to be the cesspool where you can just clone everything. And we see it on the PlayStation Store all the time where like when a game blows up on Steam, like Repo or Schedule One, immediately there's some weird publisher who does everything they can to throw together a cheap clone of it and copy the art style and trick people into buying it on the PlayStation Store. So if this lawsuit does make it all the way to the end and Sony wins, that could be a huge way to deter developers, whether they're Chinese or not, from copying Western developers and putting slop on the PlayStation Store that no one really wants to play in the first place. The only people who end up playing this stuff are tricked into it by not knowing any better, and that feels super scummy. Last time I talked about this, I was pretty confident Sony had it in the bag, and now that I've seen how aggressive they're being overall about fighting back against Tencent's bullshit, if we're being honest, I think once again they will have this in the bag. We just gotta wait and see. But yeah, as far as lawsuits go, Sony's in a lot of them all the time, whether they're class action initiated by outside of Sony or this one initiated by Sony. But this is one where I definitely feel like it's A, justified, and B, I really want Sony to come out on top, and it looks like they're really taking it seriously and handling it the right way because these slop games are just out of control and I want to see less of them. But finally, that brings me to the third news story here, which is about Resident Evil and where the franchise is going. Capcom was on an extreme roll for a few years. We got Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, Resident Evil Village, and Resident Evil 4, all in the span of like 4 or 5 years. Like, it was every year we were getting a new Resident Evil game, and then after Resident Evil 4 Remake, there was a little bit of a quiet period building up to Resident Evil 9 Requiem, and I was curious to see if they were going to go back and remake some other games or just let Resident Evil 9 come out and then give it another break. Thankfully, they are going to be remaking Resident Evil games, and unfortunately, the one that they're remaking next, if these leaks are to be believed, is one of my least favorites in the series, but the other side of the coin there is that it has the most room for improvement, and that game is Resident Evil 0. If you've never played this game, it came out at a weird time. So like we got the Resident Evil remake on GameCube, which was amazing. And it was the classic over-the-shoulder isometric third-person combat. Then we got Resident Evil 4, and it was so good and so revolutionary that it changed the trajectory of the franchise forever. And then Resident Evil 0 came out, and it was built with the same assets as the Resident Evil 1 remake, and they tried to differentiate it a little bit by having you play as two characters, and they had shared inventories that you could warp items between them and switch whenever you wanted to solve puzzles. But ultimately, it just doesn't really come together all that well. It's cryptically difficult, and it just doesn't really feel like that great of a Resident Evil game. And according to MP First, that one is confirmed to be in development. But also, at the same time, we've heard a lot of rumors about Code Veronica. And if you look at the entire Resident Evil franchise as a whole, that's the one that I want remade the most, that I have the least experience with. I know it's super popular with the Resident Evil fans who don't play the games, like they exist on Twitter exclusively, and they interact with the franchise through YouTube videos and pictures. But if you talk to people who have actually played Code Veronica, it is one of the most underrated and underplayed Resident Evil games, and you get to play as Claire. It involves Chris. It's got a really cool plot, and I feel like, you know, they've done the HD version, but it's like just in that weird spot where it's new-ish, but kind of too old to really feel modern enough to go back to. So I hope if they are remaking Resident Evil 0, we get Code Veronica first. But the weirdest part about all of this is at the end of Resident Evil 4's Separate Ways DLC, there's a cutscene that directly teases Resident Evil 5 remake, and I'd love to see that. I like Resident Evil 5. I've played it multiple times on my Steam Deck and my Nintendo Switch and the Xbox 360. It's one of those games that I don't love all that much, but I just continue going back to because it's the combat from Resident Evil 4 perfected, and I thought the co-op was a lot of fun running through with my friends. And just the fact that they teased it kind of made me feel like they would go back and remake it. I know there was a whole culture war thing with Resident Evil 5, but like being honest, that whole thing was just stupid, and that's a dumb reason to not remake the game, especially if you teased it. And honestly, these three games, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 5, and Resident Evil Code Veronica, out of the Resident Evil franchise, have a lot of room to improve, and honestly, the white whale is Resident Evil 6. So like, in terms of wanting to see what Capcom can do with everything they've learned from the 2 and 3 remake, the 4 remake, Village, and 7, I would really like to see them go back to that well and kind of fix up some of the more rough games in the series. So it's good to know, not from Dusk Golem, because he talks a lot and nothing he ever says comes true. I don't know why there's so many articles written about his leaks, because frankly, none of them are even very good or reliable or believable. So it's nice to see leaks coming from a site that is reputable like MP First, because it gets me excited about the future of the franchise. And I just wanted to talk about it because I love Resident Evil and it's the Halloween season, and I needed a third topic for this news story. So if you're here at the end of the video, huge shout out to you. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in this one. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.